Yep. It'd be nice if they beat a Big Ten team because they're a mid-major. So
yeah,
we will see. Okay, got that. Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We're going to be talking here with Marcus from down in Houston about his trip to Walt Disney World in just a second. So hang out with us and hope you're having a great week. This is going to be the show that's the day after Christmas, by the way. So you don't leave in the comments that, hey, you missed a week. I already recorded with Scott for next Monday because we're getting ahead already for Marathon Weekend because that's going to sneak up on us before we know it. It's like in 3 weeks. And so we won't be here that Wednesday to record because that'll be the day I'm at the expo. So this is December 26th. And it's wrote it down, 2213. Holy smokes. All right, here we go. Welcome to episode 2206. Nope. 2013. I already messed it up because messing around here. Okay, here we go. 2213. Because I got the 26 written down. I can't read my own writing. Terrible. I got an Apple Pencil. Now I'm trying to write stuff down. I shouldn't do that. I should just type because I have terrible handwriting.
Yeah, I like how you turn the voice on, man. That's nice.
Yeah, my dad taught me that. Mr. Radio. Okay. Here we go. Welcome to episode 2000. Now I got the stuff in my throat. Oh my gosh, man, what a night. What a day. Okay, here we go. Third try is a charm.
You got it.
Welcome to episode 2213 of the Be Our Guest Walt Disney World Trip Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Robin from BeOurGuestPodcast.com and one of the senior agents over at the Magic for Less Travel. Happy Monday to you. And one more time, Merry Christmas. I know that we're wrapping up Christmas here the day after Christmas, Boxing Day, actually. Marcus, our guest here in just a second, reminded me. And I just hope everybody had a wonderful time with friends and family over the weekend, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And you know what? It's still the greatest time of the year because it's bowl season for college football. And the bowls just get bigger and bigger and better. And the prizes get bigger and better and all that good stuff. So I'm still in a great mood. And the good news about this week coming up, because I'm a huge Christmas fan, and I know it's kind of a letdown once you get through Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. But this is that cool week where you probably won't know what day of the week it is. You know, is it Thursday? Is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? Who cares? It doesn't matter for most people. So enjoy the week, spend time with friends and family, and thanks for listening to our show. Because I understand you're probably not on a commute. You're probably not working today unless you're, out there, one of the, somebody out there, in retail or out there, first responder or something like that. If you are, thanks for being out there. But if not, whenever you listen to the show, thanks for being there. We appreciate you. So let's have a fun trip report. Marcus down in Houston, Texas. Marcus, one more time. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. What's going on?
Hey, Mike. Nice. Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me, man. This is a dream come true. I love the show and love to be a part of it with you, man.
I love it. So what do you guys do for the holiday? How's it celebrated down in the South?
Well, usually sometimes it's celebrated in shorts. I think we talked about that earlier. I think we've worn shorts the last few years. We got some snow coming, and I'm not holding my breath. To be honest with you, after the freeze we had, I think last year, I've had enough snow. I'm over that. So, but yeah, no, normally, just family, hopefully staying close to home, trying to spend as much time with the kids and the family, enjoying the time off.
So I know you have little ones. So this year, what was the big toy that the little ones were asking Santa for? Because, I used to know, but now the youngest is 14, going to be 15 next week. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it just came out of my mouth. So, everything's expensive and like electronic. So what is the new kind of hot thing for the kids?
Well, my daughter's into these things. They're called LOL dolls. I'm not the biggest fan. They seem kind of sassy to me, but she's 5 now. She'll be 6 in January, and that's what her friends are into now. And so that's what's coming for her. And my son is going to be getting a balance bike. He'll be 2. Saturday this week, and so he's all into that. He's your typical boy, I guess. He's into the cars and the bikes, and so yeah. So we're excited. I mean, honestly, it's they're young enough now that we can kind of guide them however we want them,
Right.
right? They're not all in school yet, so we can kind of dictate kind of what the new hotness is of the year. But yeah, now that my daughter's in kindergarten, that's starting to see the influences come in from the other kids and from her friends.
It is kind of funny though, because nowadays I think, like when my oldest, who's now 26, this just shows how old I am. Like, everything she wanted was because we watched stuff on TV with all the commercials. That's how she was swayed. And
Right.
you mentioned kind of that I have no idea what an LOL doll is, but Paige always wanted those They were called Bratz dolls, Bratz, and they were
Yeah.
like dolls that had just crazy
Attitude.
makeup on and attitude. Yeah, exactly. And I felt kind of the same way about those. And then she had the Polly Pockets that, had the million pieces. You'd step on them. They were like, it was like Legos, but for girls, it's like a minefield. I always stepped on, a high heel coming off one of the dolls. Crazy. So I just wonder what was hot out there. You never go wrong with a bike. I mean, that's 100% satisfaction guaranteed from Santa. So.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, definitely, yeah, no. The Bratz. It sounds like it's the precursor to the LOL doll. So,
Yeah, totally.
but yeah, no, you're right though. It was the same for me. Obviously, you remember the commercials, you see it. But yeah, with Disney Plus now, we obviously don't get any of that. We'll watch occasionally the Disney Channel app, and they still run commercials because that service is, I think, free for the most part. So you still get that, and you can tell they're not used to it because when they see a commercial pop up, it gets their attention. They're not used to it like we grew up with.
And that's sad because, and I'm a huge retro fan. I listen to like a lot of retro podcasts about, 80s culture, 70s culture, because I'm an old dude. But the thing is, I think what we get in my generation is that we go back and the nostalgia is for those commercials. Like I remember,
Right.
As much the toy as I do the commercial, like Connect Four, like I don't have four. Oh, diagonal. Oh, you got me, sister. And then, it's like, I remember, I can't remember, important stuff, but I can remember. Anyway,
Right. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
let's jump in here and talk Disney. So, how did you find a Disney podcast? Where did your Disney fandom start? Like, how did this all get going for you?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, obviously, I listen to the show every week. Like similar to most guests, or it goes back to when I was a kid. If I was been thinking about this question. For me, what I think about is obviously going to the theaters, seeing all the movies there, going to the Disney store, and thinking that this is amazing. Pre-ordering the VHS tapes, that came with like some form of collective print. The Disney Channel, obviously Disney originals. I still remember, NSYNC doing the concert at
Nice.
the Chinese theater, years ago. So it goes all the way back to then. Unfortunately, for me, for the parks, I didn't have any exposure to them until 2019. My wife and my daughter, who was 2 at the time, we took a 4-day trip to Disneyland, and so that was my like kind of first exposure to the park scene. And honestly, that's where the obsession really kind of kicked in. I probably getting to go there, but also having a kid of my own and getting to kind of start that process, with my daughter.
So let me ask you about that, because being in Houston, obviously you're kind of equidistant between the coasts, right? Between,
Right.
Disneyland and Walt Disney World. You picked Disneyland for your very first trip. Was there a reason why you went there first instead of Walt Disney World? What drew you there?
No, honestly, Mike, I wish I had like a cool answer, but for me, I didn't know anything. For us, I think it was the weather is what kind of drew us to Disneyland. Obviously, being in Houston, we kind of wanted
That's
to
true.
kind of get away from weather that we typically are in. So I think that's kind of what drove us there. Like looking back now, I'm glad that we started there. Especially hearing all your stories and your comments about Disneyland. I'm kind of glad that's where we started. We didn't really have I didn't really know anything. I didn't have any expectations. And to be honest, where I've come from then to now, I want to go back because I would do it totally different this time around as opposed to when we went back in 2019.
So what do you remember from that trip? Because we'll dive into this trip here that we're going to talk about tonight, but I'm always curious about first trips and especially your thoughts on Disneyland, because you were a first timer, but I mean, you had no knowledge to draw on from a Walt Disney World perspective, where I think a lot of us, do go to Walt Disney World and hop out to Disneyland, and you're always trying to like take those strategies you learn from Walt Disney World and apply them. You were, I would think it'd be easier to go to Disneyland first because it's not so complex. It's not such a metropolis to maneuver. But I mean, did you feel overwhelmed or did it feel just right? Kind of,
Yeah, it felt just right. I mean, to be honest, like I will say, like, the castle was a little underwhelming at first, just because you grow up, you see the commercials for Disney World and so not, that's what you kind of expect. But honestly, like I would say it's now that we've done both, it's still my favorite park. I mean, or my favorite like coast. DCA is our favorite park, but I think it's just it's a different vibe. It doesn't seem as competitive, and I don't know if that's just maybe when we went or if it's like a culture. It just seems a lot more just relaxed, which is kind of our speed, especially with kids. You don't feel like you're just constantly competing and trying to win the day, and that's kind of what, like looking back, that's kind of what I enjoy the most. And like the cast members, especially, I think that's kind of what stood out the most is just how friendly, just the cast members are. I think that was kind of what stood out to me. Like looking back on that trip, what was the most eye-opening compared to what you see in your day-to-day, with service industry.
That's so funny that you say that because on about day 2 or 3 of our trip to Disneyland in July, my wife Pam turned to me and she said, "The thing I really like about Disneyland, because she knew I was like eating it up. Like I just kept saying, I love this place.
Right.
I kept telling her like it's hard to put the head around why I love this place so much, but I'm in love. Like I love it." And she said, "Here's what it is. It's super chill." And she said, "Nobody's like in a hurry out here." She says, "Everybody just seems very chill." And she used that same term. It's not competitive.
Yeah.
She says, Walt Disney World's fun, but it feels many times like everybody is trying to maximize the day.
Yeah.
Because it is expensive. I mean, Disneyland's just as expensive.
Right.
But, it's like everybody's trying to be the first in line or to get the best picture or to, get that extra few minutes with the princess. She says it for some reason. She goes, and she couldn't tell why, because it's still Disney fans. It's still really expensive. But she says maybe it's just the Southern California culture and that it is kind of more of a locals park, but that's got to be changing. But that's so funny you say that because my wife turned to me and said that exact same thing. I totally agree.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
It's so funny. Good point. Okay, so let's talk about the trip we're going to dive into tonight. So when did you take it and how did it come together?
Yeah, so obviously, going back to that Disneyland trip, like I said, it was our first time or my first time experiencing the parks. So that was great, but it was also my first time to kind of experience the Disney blues. And like for me, I like to think that I'm a rational person that, is very aware of like my feelings and, what I felt after returning from that trip. I would have never anticipated that. And so, this trip, I know it's come up the last few times, but the current trip that we're discussing today was a delayed trip that we had booked, 3 months after returning from our Disneyland trip. So it was supposed to take place in September of 2020. And here we are. It, obviously it happened in April of 2022. Part of that was just obviously with the closure, it being our first time going to Disney World. We didn't want to have our first experience be limited just with the capacity and just with the, a lot of the closures or just with the experiences being, closed and not at full capacity. We wanted to just kind of hold off and push to where it was more of your typical Disney World experience. So that's kind of when it got started is, following that Disneyland trip, but like most got delayed in 2020 and pushed all the way to 2022 just based on what was coming online and what was opening up.
It seems like every trip report we have is now it used to be a 2020 trip and it ended up being 2022. So yeah, it was a crazy time. I went down, right with Scott right after the parks were open. But I think that was just the time where if you had been many, many times, it was a great time to go because you weren't missing anything you hadn't done.
Right.
In a situation like yours, you made the exact right call. That would not have been time to go for your first trip because the magic wasn't there for me. What it was,
right.
It was the weirdness, like I loved it because it was like you were living in Bizarro world. We were getting kicked out of the Magic Kingdom one night and it was still definitely light outside. I think the park closed at 7, and it was August and we're walking out. We're the last ones because we had a late ADR at Liberty Tree And, we took forever to eat because we wanted to be the last ones to get pictures, right? We were doing this on purpose. And
Yeah.
we're like, we're like the last ones in the Magic Kingdom. It's light as can be. And we're getting kicked out because it's closed. And we're the last park that's open tonight. You know what? 7 o'clock, there's nothing else open on property. It was so weird. So that would have been really funky for somebody for a very first trip. That's not what Walt Disney World's about. So you definitely made the right call there. I bet you had lots of conversations though about like how long do we wait, because it was so uncertain, from
Yeah.
to September.
Well, for us too, we welcomed our son in December of 2020, so he was a COVID baby. So for that kind of furthered the trip as well. So yeah, but the trip was originally planned. We were going to do a similar length of stay in September of 2020 at the All Stars. I think it was that was back when I think it was a dining discount package that we had booked. And so obviously that wasn't available to us when we took this trip. But yeah, no, we had a great time.
Man, dining package. That tells you how long ago it was.
Yeah, definitely.
Every day.
Well, because to be honest, when we did Disneyland, we stayed off site. We brought our lunch into the park. We ate our breakfast in the hotel. And then we would usually grab a meal like Blaze Pizza or whatever on the way home, like from the parks. And so, this Disney World trip, we're like, okay, we're gonna go all out. We're gonna stay on site, which is maybe not as much of an option when you're at Disney World, but stay on site, do the dining package, really try to give it a go. Because at that point I was hooked. Before I was, your typical, like, not cheap, but I didn't really know. Didn't know what I was missing. And so I was more on a budget and trying to just, it was just a different experience for sure.
No, but I love that progression though, because you get that first kind of taste of it. You're in the parks, you kind of see how everything pans out. Then your next trip, I love it. Pick an all-star, get a, do it back in the day. I can't believe we're talking about this. Maybe do a quick service dining plan, maybe do the regular dining plan, and just see what it's all about. Maybe not do a hopper if you're trying to save some money, but then, and then as the years go on, and maybe you have more means, whatever happens, you could maybe upgrade to a moderate, whatever. So I like that idea. So now let me ask you about this, because you guys ended up doing a split stay.
Right.
At the All-Stars.
Yeah, right.
You guys did it a little bit different than the All-Stars. So tell us about how you picked your accommodations, because these are really nice.
Yeah. So, like I said, my son was born in December of 2020. And, so obviously that kind of changes like our mentality on it. Right now we have a 1-year-old that we're taking with us as opposed to a 4 or 5-year-old. And so the idea was that we were going to stay at the Contemporary, be close so that, it's easier to duck out, get a nap, that kind of deal. And so we actually made that reservation. We booked that, and, we waited, and I listened to podcasts and listened to, different, and I kept hearing people like reference DVC and talk about DVC. And, I didn't think that I could ever afford it, because I would go online, and then long story short, I ended up finding a resale, and we ended up getting a DVC contract.
You're all in. You're okay. So you've gone from like, I'm just going to go to.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, you're like, you jumped in the 20-foot into the pool here.
Right. Well, again, I like to think that I'm a rational person. If I could do a screen share with you, I could show you the Excel documents that I've built to not only justify the purchase, but also just to try to make sense of it. Right. And for us, we were hooked after the 2019 trip. We knew that this is something that we would want to do if we could have, yearly or bi-yearly or, every other year. And with young kids, the deluxes, they provide convenience, and that's what DVC does. It allows us to stay, in deluxe accommodations at a discount. So, so we ended up doing a split stay at Bay Lake Tower in Kidani Village.
So yeah, because you're mentioning All-Stars, and I was peeking over here, I'm like, wait, do I got the right email pulled up? Because I'm pretty sure it's Bay Lake and Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Like, no, I know, man. And honestly, like, it's not something that I like to talk about a lot, because I know that it's crazy for most people, right?
But it's a commitment.
The progression of that.
DVC is one of those things you're buying over time. You're investing in the future, and I think that's great, because that you've made a financial decision where you are investing in memories over the long term, which is totally, you don't have to explain to me, or I do Scott's DVC. It's better than being DVC is having a buddy that's DVC. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I just hang out. Yeah. I hang out with him at Old Key West all the time.
It's like I said, we're excited about it, and I will say that one thing that's nice about it is it kind of takes the pressure off the trip, right? I think it's knowing that you've made this commitment knowing that you're going to be back, assuming all things, Lord willing. And so it's one of those deals where it kind of takes that pressure and allows you to maybe just kind of, again, have that West Coast, vibe to your Disney World trip.
100%. Now, it's kind of ironic because one of the reasons we had Scott on to do this whole trip report last Monday was because we never have anybody on that stays the contemporary hardly. Like we have 100 shows on the Coronado and
Right.
1,000 shows on Pop Century, but we never have anybody that stays the contemporary. And here you are, Bay Lake Tower. All right, so give me a quick review. What did you think of Bay Lake Tower as a Disney fan? Because the one thing I hear about it is that it's kind of sterile.
Yeah.
But of course, you cannot beat the views or the location. So give us what you thought.
Yeah, so honestly, we picked Bay Lake Tower as our home resort, so that's where we're going to be for the next 30-something years. And to be honest with you, like I think the reason ours again, it was sight unseen because we've never been there. But kind of where I was thinking and what I was hoping would be the case was that obviously it is sterile, like the resort itself. Like once you're in the Bay Lake Tower portion, obviously you don't have all the theming as you do like in an Animal Kingdom Lodge or at Pop or Art, but one thing I do like about Bay Lake Tower, or even the Contemporary for that matter, is you feel like you're still like in the magic. Because people are still experiencing their day, right? You have people coming over, doing Chef Mickey's, or just you got the monorail running through. So for me, I feel like you never like escape the magic. And obviously, I've never stayed anywhere else other than the two that we've stayed, so I can't speak for the other resorts. I would imagine it probably feels that way as well, but being park adjacent, being able to see the Magic Kingdom, it's just something that you can't, you can't get that anywhere else, right? So that was like kind of the draw to us. Obviously, the walk, you can't beat that either. The good food, and obviously we'll get into it, but having Chef Mickey's and Steakhouse 71 right there, it's just very convenient. For us, we're not really fancy people, to be honest with you. Like, so for us, we just need a place to stay. But it's the amenities that we enjoyed. The pool, the slides, the pool, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, great call. I mean, yeah, definitely. Because you can walk right there. You can go over to TTC, catch a monorail to Epcot if you want to head out over there. Yeah, it's a neat little place. Now, let me ask you about Animal Kingdom Lodge, and just so while we're in the resort section here,
yeah,
very different because this is a place where you could stay here and go over to go back and forth between Kidani and Jumbo House and not ever have to go to a theme park. There's a lot going on and there's a lot to see and do. So, and I can't imagine that being your first time there. I mean, it had to blow you away, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely a different experience. I would say like for us, like Animal Kingdom Lodge would be perfect like when our kids are older because you really do. Again, for me, I don't have a lot of knowledge when it comes to different resorts, but one thing like in retrospect of the trip is like Animal Kingdom Lodge, you definitely don't feel the same park vibes that you would at a Bay Lake Tower.
It's the opposite, actually. I mean,
yeah, it's the exact opposite.
These two couldn't be more opposite because you're right. I mean, you almost feel like Bay Lake Tower is an extension of Tomorrowland, almost like you're right there, almost just over the berm, and everything. Because the monorail could be going, at Disneyland, the monorail is going through Tomorrowland, and like your monorail is going through your resort at World.
Right.
But Kidani Village, I mean, it is. I mean, it's set up like an outpost. I mean, there's
right.
It's its own like little thing. Yeah. So it's kind of the opposite.
So I can understand why guests get to a certain point. It definitely provides that like, escape, right, where you can go and have your park day, but then you're able to go. I mean, even the pool is like you feel like you're in the way that they have it. You feel like you're in the jungle, right? I mean, they got the tall grass. It's awesome. I mean, we really enjoy it. I mean, for us with the young kids, Bay Lake Tower was better just because of being able to walk back to your resort. You can't really beat that. But other than that, yeah, Animal Kingdom Lodge is an awesome resort.
Your daughter had to get a kick out of those seeing the animals, right? I mean, perfect age for that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had a Savannah view. The one thing I will say, anyone who stays at Kidani, when you make your recommendations or your requests to try to get as close as you can to the elevator. We didn't know. I don't know. So poor planning on our part, but we didn't make any requests, so we were on like the furthest end of that loop at Kidani. So we'd get off and we'd have probably like a quarter to half a mile walk to get to our room. But obviously still though, grateful to have the opportunity to stay there and get to see the animals when you wake up and at night. It's like I said, you can't beat that.
Yeah, but no, I've been there because we stayed at Jumbo a couple times and we have one of those rooms where I just told my wife this is just it's marathon training. Like that's all this is. Like if we're so far to get to our room every day, get off the bus. I'm like, okay, should we stop and get hydrate because we are still so far from our room when they
Right.
drop us
Yeah.
off at the resort because it's a funky shape because of the savannas. It's kind of like a horseshoe.
Yeah,
So
and I felt for Bell Services when because we did a split stay and that was like the second half. So they brought up our bags and the poor guy, man, he was like out of breath for pushing the cart. I was like, oh man. So then we had groceries and I said, I'm gonna go get them. I'm not gonna have someone deliver those because it's a haul and to be pushing luggage and whatever anything in additional, it's taxing for sure.
you're a good guy. All right. So let me ask you real quick though about this. You mentioned this in the notes, and people are constantly asking me about this, and you have experience. You guys use Tiffany Town Car to get from the airport to the resort and back. So
Yeah.
was it a positive experience? What were your feelings on that? Just so people know.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of mixed, to be honest, Mike. The drivers were very professional. Honestly, the booking was everything was easy and simple to drive. We did a public stop, which was nice. So everything that you could ever ask for in a service. The one issue that we did run into was the car seats. So we had like I said, a 5-year-old at a time and a 1-year-old at a time. And there's the way that they operate, you have to kind of put them in the comments and so then you're kind of at the mercy of the drivers having the appropriate car seats. And so, some people are not saying they're lax, but some people are a little bit more, I guess, particular about what they like what their kids ride in. And so that was our only complaint. It sounds terrible, but I want to say my 1-year-old son, he was forward facing when I think theoretically you're not supposed to be forward facing until like year 2. So I mean, I know it. Maybe in the old days it probably wasn't a big deal, but now like it's different. So for me, with a family of young kids, like that was my only concern and like only drawback from it. I'd imagine if you were just like a party with teens or young kids or teenagers where they're not maybe requiring all the different car seats, it would be a great service. Like I said, the drivers were professional. They were on time. We got there. I was worried about that because that's your biggest concern is trying to get back to the airport, and deal with security. And so no issues there. It was more just the car seats.
Cool. Yeah, that's I mean, back in my day, we just rode in the back of an F-150.
Yeah.
But then with my kids, I was always paranoid, because like I was like, oh my gosh, I have a Jeep Wrangler, and I'm like, oh my god, it's strapped her in. She had an 8-point harness. I mean, the Apollo astronauts weren't strapped in any tighter than Mallory was when we went to McDonald's. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about fun times in the parks. You're there now. I will say, like, see, you had 2 kids. I've never done it with 2 young ones because Paige and Mallory are almost 12 years apart. So it was almost like having 2 only children. So we
Right.
it got to do that. I will say Mallory was easier when she was a baby than when she was like 3. Because like once they get that age, 3, 4, 5, they start wanting everything in the stores. They start getting opinions on everything, and
Yeah.
this is how it is. So you had 2, and it was your first trip, and I mean, it's overwhelming. There's so much going on: sound, sights, smells. Tell us about what it was like in the theme parks for you guys. How did you kind of strategize how you were going to do what in what order?
Yeah. So I mean, for us, I think it was a struggle at first. I think we weren't anticipating the crowds. I think once you kind of got used to that element and then maybe reset your expectations, I think the trip went much better. Like I said, for us, it was our first trip to Disney World. And so, we hit the ground running. We did Lightning Lane, or I'm sorry, did Genie Plus on our arrival day, stacked attractions, pretty much got there, had a pub sub
Oh,
and then hit
yeah,
the
I was gonna
parks.
say yes because I didn't think you got one, but yes, that's Scott and I are already talking about our pub sub 2 weeks. We're stopping at Publix. Cannot wait.
Yeah, so we did that, but yeah, hit the ground running, and the same deal, I guess our first full day there, and you start to kind of, again, like we're very fortunate to know that we're going to be going back, and so we really had to really kind of reset our expectations and try to slow down. I mean, I know I hear people talk about it all the time, and it's so hard to just kind of get in the rat race of it, but for us, it was doing that. Obviously, utilizing Genie Plus. I mean, we with 2 kids, especially with the 1-year-old, we didn't wait in any lines. Whatever we could get, we got, and and that was kind of where we were at with that. Utilizing, going back for naps or just going back in general, just to hang out the resort and to swim. Um, you know, just like what everyone says. I mean, we really took advantage of that. Just trying to pace ourselves and not overdo it. But you're right, though. I mean, obviously, my son is now going to be 2 on Saturday, and it would be a different experience taking him now versus when he was 1. He's much more opinionated now and doesn't want to be in a stroller. So
Right.
it's going to be a little bit different come next year. Trying to limit him from just running crazy in the park.
Yeah, I just returned to my wife and I said, I thought she was going to be, I thought it was going to be the hardest one when she was 6 months old. We took her, because we had to bring all the bottles. You had to, take
Hmm.
the formula and shake the bottles with the hot water and, she had to go to the changing stations and all that stuff. I'm like, but she slept the whole time. All you do is feed her sleep, and she slept in her stroller.
Yeah,
Oh, when she was 2, oh man, it was like,
right.
oh, just sleep for 10 minutes. Just please give me some downtime. I want to have fun too on this vacation. It's crazy.
Definitely. Yeah, I can't speak for everyone, but like I said, for us, it was more about just kind of you kind of have to get reaccustomed to it, I would think. For most people who go back, it's probably jarring at first, because I know it's busy right now, but for us, it was more about just kind of getting acclimated to just like what it's going to be like. You have these expectations, and you go into it thinking, X, and then it's totally different. I think that was kind of what helped us, is just try to kind of reset that, and that helped us going forward.
So you guys spent time in every park. You had hoppers while you were
Hmm.
there. So give us a couple stories. Like, what were some memorable either attractions, shows you saw, just fun times in the theme parks? What stood out?
Yeah, again, for us first trip, so you go in thinking it's going to be, what you're going to look back is going to be on this ADR,
Mhm.
or this certain attraction. But I look back, and all of like the memories that I have is usually over us having some form of quick service meal or on some form of transportation going
Yep.
to the parks. And so
Yep.
I don't know if it's because maybe it's the anticipation of going to the park, and you're still like excited about the experience, and so maybe that's why, or maybe you're just happy to kind of be out of the crowd. So for us, I mean, like I said, eating lunch at Pecos Bill, and my son, being delirious at that point, and goofing off, or riding the monorail to Epcot, and just seeing kind of the whole Seven Seas Lagoon in the morning, seeing all the transportation and like kind of the resort waking up. That was for us, magical, for me at least. But yeah, no, I mean, for us, fortunately, that the characters that was like the week that they had come back, where like you had the full experience, and I think we benefited not only from just having them back, but you just kind of got the impression that the characters missed it as well. Right? I mean, obviously there'd been all this long, time off from that, and so like the embraces, they just seemed, not that they don't seem genuine, but they just seem, more genuine, and longer. And, so that was, I'll never forget that. Just getting back to see the characters, and just the excitement on my kids' eyes, but also on the characters as well.
That's well said, because I believe that to 100% to be true. Because I remember that time. It was almost like we'd hit a milestone, as far as Disney fans. And, you had the parks closed, and you had the parks reopen. That was a milestone. You had the ships start to sail again, another milestone. But a huge one, kind of like a soft milestone, was we can meet the characters, and I mean, because that's the quintessential Disney experience. You go to Walt Disney World, and before 2020, you never even gave it a second thought, right? You go to Walt Disney World, and of course, I'm going to walk up to Mickey Mouse and get my picture,
Hmm.
or my favorite prince or princess or Captain Jack or whatever you have, and it's like that got ripped away, and so to get that back, and you were there at that historical time, that's really cool. And it's cool that you mentioned that, because I didn't really think about it. But that's a definite, time and point of history for Disney parks.
Yeah, so I mean, that I'm saying, won't forget that. I mean, again, I think just being, it's almost like we're seasoned into to this regard, because we're fortunate to be able to just kind of take a step back. We letting the kids play on the hub grass, with their bubble wands, and I don't know, that's when I look back on the trip, that's the moments that I look, like remember the most is just those simple moments. And it's frustrating because, we're having a meal. We have meals together, year round, right? And it's just something about Disney World. And I don't know if it's just because you don't have the distraction of just life or what it
Yes.
is, but it's just something special about it. And yeah, it's wild, man.
I think it gets to be exactly what you just said. It's especially as your kids get older, right? When I'm lucky enough that Paige goes with us now that she's an adult and she's up in Chicago running her basketball team and hey, go Flames, by the way. And then Mallory's in high school now and she's got her cheerleading and she's, super busy. But when we get to go on a Disney vacation for a week or so, and Pam's a teacher. I'm always working on the computer doing the podcast, booking travel. But while we're there, life pauses. And so you're right. I mean, we do eat together, here at home, but it's always like, okay, well, we're going to slam down, this Mexican real quick. And then, Mallory's got to be at this cheer practice or football, but I got to go home and work and Pam's got to. But at Walt Disney World, it's like the only thing we have to do is sit there and talk to each other, maybe ride out 45 minutes until the fireworks start.
Mm-hmm.
Something magical because you can relax, you can be a family. I love that. And one of the other things when you're talking that really kind of hit me was when I look back at my pictures, some of my favorite pictures for the last 15 years of going to Walt Disney World, not attractions, but it's like sitting at the pool at Pop Century or like you said, a counter service restaurant like the ABC Commissary. You mentioned you guys ate there.
Yeah.
I just have such great memories of just wacky stuff we did. But
Mm-hmm.
it was never about like, oh, I was the first one on Space Mountain. I did that and it was fun, but the good times, I mean, one of the best times I ever had was at the boardwalk. We just hung out at the pool all day, at the
Yeah.
boardwalk villas. It's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of rides, though, obviously for us, we came a long way. My daughter went to Disneyland. She was 2 at the time, and dark rides scared her. I mean, we barely made it through the Royal Theater, Rapunzel show with Mother Gothel. So, going into this trip, we weren't really sure. We were hoping that it's been 2 or 3 years. We were hoping that obviously we would have progressed. And I mean, she's the most timid little girl like at home, but in the park, man, she was wanting to ride all the rides. We did Everest, everything that she was tall enough to do.
Wow.
Hollywood Studios, and the Tower of Terror. I mean, she did it all. So for me, that was something that I'll look back and just seeing how proud I was of her to be willing to go out and to do that and to enjoy it as well.
She did Tower.
Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And Everest. I mean, there's a lot of adults that won't do either one of those.
Yeah, she was, and we were fortunate to go back in October of this year. So she did, we did Guardians of the Galaxy then. So she's done them all, man. The only one she hasn't done, I think, is Rock and Roller Coaster. So I think that's a height requirement that she's not at yet. But I think what's tricky with where we're at now is we had to do rider swap a lot of times because my son's obviously not able to ride most of the rides. So the rides that we got to do together were also special, and a lot of those two, there's a lot of history around them as well. So, I believe me, we rode, we were fortunate to ride, the mine, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train multiple times, and my daughter with rider swap rode it multiple times. But man, those rides, some of those rides, they just go by so fast, and there's something about like just the old boat rides where it just takes longer. It's got a lot more, like I said, it's got some history to it. There's something about those rides. Like I said, maybe it's the nostalgia of it, but for us, we haven't been going long enough. So it's still though, those rides, they just have something to them. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's just the history behind it, but if we don't have a long history with them, but we enjoy those rides more, I think, because we get to do it with the family.
Yeah, it's just chill. Like you're
Yeah.
just having a good time. Yeah. And I remember back when we used to do the child swap with Mallory, because Paige obviously was older. Paige used to call Mallory her golden fast pass
Yeah.
fast pass days, right? Because she got to ride twice because she would ride with me and then she'd ride with Pam because we'd pass off Mallory and she's like, yeah, there's the golden fast pass.
Yeah, it's really cool that they do that. I mean, I guess they don't have to, but that is really really neat. Obviously, me and my wife getting to experience it with my daughter.
Right.
Because it is hard. It's hard, kind of get, and that's kind of what we did in Disneyland. Obviously, my daughter wasn't able to ride anything, so there's a lot of times where one was riding by itself. So I look forward to the trips where we can all ride together and where we can experience, everything together and not feel like we're all kind of, pushing the stroller around for 15 minutes while the other two are riding the ride. I look forward to when we can all, kind of get into it together.
You'll get there. Trust me. You'll get there, and all of a sudden they'll be off to college, man. I want to tell you that, but it happens. It goes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me ask you this, because we have about 10 minutes left. I want to ask you about the dining.
Yeah.
You said you're not real fancy, because I'm not either. When I talk to Scott, though, he's always Citrico's, California Grill,
Right.
flying fish. I'm like, have fun. But you guys went to Chef Mickey's Steakhouse 71 in Vietnapoli as far as sit down meals.
Yeah.
Which one of those was your favorite, and why, if you had to pick one?
Honestly, I would probably say Vietnapoli. It's close. Obviously, Steakhouse 71. The food that you get there at the price you pay, I feel like it's a steal. I think for me, like though the pizza, I love the fact that the restaurant is so loud, right? For parents of young kids, that's like always your concern. Even when you're at Disney World, we're very mindful of how our kids are behaving, not to put off anyone next to us, right? And Vietnam just provides this like environment that's conducive to your kids just kind of getting to just let loose. And so for us the food was great everywhere. But if I had to pick, I would have the Vietnam is one that I look back on probably the most. Because who doesn't want pizza after you've been walking all day? Plus you don't really escape. You get to escape the park. It just feels different when you're in the park and you kind of just dip into a restaurant as opposed to having to take transportation. It's just something to it. So for me, I would say Vietnapoli. Chef Mickey's was great. The characters were, like I said, it was a full experience then. The one thing I will say is that it just felt so rushed. Like, you felt like you're just being rotated out of there. And I get why they have to do it. It's, there's a lot of demand for that. But that's the one thing that kind of not rubbed me wrong, but one thing that I would change. You just feel like you're having this rushed experience, and it kind of takes away from just, again, like the moment,
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying, because they are trying to turn the tables in there, and it's expensive, so they should not try to.
Yeah,
you shouldn't have to hustle at that price point, because that place is not cheap. So, okay, let me ask you about the counter service real quick. And you guys you mentioned Pecos Bills, Casey's, Pinocchio's Village House, Cosmic Rays, also ABC Commissary, and Woody's Lunchbox. So, if you had to highlight one of those, which one would you pick besides Pecos? We kind of talked about that earlier.
Yeah, well, for me, it's Casey's Corner, man, hands down. As a baseball player, grew up playing baseball, eating Frito pie and hot dogs at the concession stand.
Hey, we call those pepper bellies here in St. Louis, but yeah, same thing. Nice.
Yeah, so for me, that was the restaurant, or that was the quick service that I enjoyed. Obviously we were that family that was eating the meal on the curbside, of Main Street. We very seldom did we actually eat at a table. Like I said, it was busy, and so for us, we weren't, trying to hover and trying to find one. It was more about just getting the kids food so, we didn't have any issues. And so most of the time we were eating on the curb or eating on the side, just trying to make do. But out of all those, Casey's is the one that I would, frequent and want to go back to.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm right with you, man. I get some corn dog nuggets and a Coke Zero and a little dip in cheese, and I'm good to go. But man, you mentioned Frito pies, which I think are the same things as we call them pepper bellies. And I was a ball player too, man. I would either play my game at Wee Hop baseball fields, or I'd umpire my two games, my 6:15, my 8:30, take my little check up to the place and get my money for the night, and I'd spend about a quarter of it on the pepper belly and some Big League Chew.
Yeah, there you go.
That was a good night. All right, so we got to wrap, but before we do, a couple of questions. So, like, lasting memory from this trip, is there anything that stands out when you look back at this trip? Split Stay, Kidani, Bay Lake Tower. Was there like one story that stood out, sometime at the pool or sometime in one of the parks? Kind of, this is the trip that this happened, anything like that?
Yeah, for me, it's obviously it was our last night. I think that's probably for most people, right? I think that last day you're just trying to really take it in, and my daughter and I, we closed Magic Kingdom down, but the kids, is got them treats from the confectionery, they're eating, watching fireworks, and the looks that we got from some of the people around us and the comments, obviously they're, it's a perfect Disney day. So that's what I look back on is, things that I would never do here at home, is give my kids just, chocolate and Rice Krispie treats at 9:00 at night, but doing that to close down the park. And then, like I said, closing it down with my daughter and getting a picture in front of, the castle, with hardly anyone around us. That's one memory that I will look back on.
Don't feel bad. I can go one worse than that. When Paige was about, gosh, she had to have been about 9 or 10. we were doing extra magic hours in the evening at the Magic Kingdom. And it was open till 3 a.m. Okay, because it closed at midnight. There used to be 3 extra hours back in the day. So we're bound and determined. This is back when my wife and I are both teachers, middle of summer. We didn't have anything to do. So we stayed out. We were like, we're staying till 3. She was only like 10. She wanted to stay. So we got her, and I don't know if they still have these, but they have those like long like tubes where you just fill them up with sugar, like different colors of sugar.
Right.
Like from the like a big round thing, you just go around and we bought her one. It must have been 18 inches long. And we just let her keep eating that thing, like, and start on it at like 8 o'clock at night just to keep her awake. And I mean, terrible.
Hey man, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. Like you said, you pay a lot of money to be there. You know, you want to get every bit of it, right? And so no judgment here, Mike.
Both parents have master's degrees in elementary education. Yet here we are giving our kid 18 inches worth of pure sugar at 8 o'clock at night. You know, I'm going to stay up till 3. Yeah, that was parenting of the year right there. So don't even sweat that. Okay, last question. What do you have on the horizon? I know you guys are DVC, so what are you planning next?
Yeah, so we're going to be going in April of this year. You know, we have some points that we were able to roll into, and so we're going to be staying in a 1-bedroom theme park view. So we're excited to get to. I know obviously Scott, I think he was in a theme park view at the Contemporary. I heard his comments about that. Looking forward to hearing about his trip on Monday. But yeah, so we're going to be staying there, doing a similar stay. You know, what's difficult now is now that my daughter's in school, you know, we're kind of handcuffed, you know, to the school schedule, right? So I look forward to being at Disney World with all the people, you know, celebrating spring break from Texas that week. But yeah, we're going in April. Like I said, staying in the 1-bedroom theme park view and looking forward to it.
Well, it sounds awesome. And you know what? You are really, I love hearing this. It's super refreshing because most of the guests we have on, and you know, it's because folks listening to podcasts are just all in on Disney, as you are, as I am. But a lot of us have gone a lot of times at this point, and it's great to hear kind of this fresh perspective. And it's so refreshing that you had such a good time and that you have such a great future in front of you with the young family. So Marcus, you know, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this, because what a great way to start the week. And I wish you and your family the best here moving into 2023.
Yeah, Mike, thank you for having me, and thank you for your team and everything y'all do. This is I drive a lot, and so this kind of gets me through the week. And so you know, I can't tell you how much I appreciate, you know, what you're doing here.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, happy New Year, and stay safe. All right, hey. Don't forget, our shows are brought to you by the Magic for Less Travel. Check them out here as we move into 2023. The agents are standing by right now, even during this hectic week, over at themagicforless.com. We'll help you plan a great Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise Line, or Adventures by Disney vacation. Again, check them out today. Mention the show, BeOurGuestPodcast.com, or not BeOurGuest, themagicforless.com. Just mentioned the Be Our Guest Podcast. That was my mistake for 2022. There it is. All right. Now, don't forget to use our Amazon affiliate link. It's beourguestpodcast.com/Amazon every time you shop online. And also a special thank you to the patrons of the Be Our Guest Podcast. You make all these shows possible. Couldn't do without you. And our patrons get that bonus show every week called Mike in the Midwest. If you'd like to join us, we'd sure love to have you. Come on over, patreon.com/Be Our Guest Podcast. Give me a follow on the social media. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Be Our Guest Mike. Would love to talk to you this crazy week where you don't know what day of the week it is, probably. And of course, join us this Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern. Oh no, there's no live show this Sunday night, because this Sunday night is New Year's Eve. And you know, for most people, what that means is you'll be counting down to 2023, right? No, for this guy, it means college football. Got 2 good college football games this Sunday, or this New Year's Eve. So no, there'll be no live show until we're taking 3 weeks off. We took Christmas night off, we took New Year's Eve night off, and we're taking off, of course, the first Sunday night of January, because we'll be down for marathon weekend. Oh my goodness, that's coming up super quick. So the shows will always be here though, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We don't miss those, so don't miss checking your feed. All right, we're gonna get out of here and wish you a great Boxing Day and a great start to your week here as we move into getting close to moving into 2023. So for Marcus down in Texas, I'm Mike here in Missouri. You guys stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon. Perfect. Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate it. And
Thank you, Mike. I love how you led the show with the bowl talk, man. I'm not going to say anything because we didn't get a bowl this year.
You didn't get a what?
I'm talking about Texas A&M not getting a bowl game.
Oh man, dude. Yeah, that's We got one by the skin of our teeth.
Yeah, I'm happy for you, man. That was a great win over
I don't know
Arkansas.
how
But hey, man, Mike, thank you again. I know you got to get out and catch that game, but thank you for the opportunity to do this. This is a blast.
No problem. Yeah, A&M, man, they'll be back. To say that was an anomaly. So do you guys, are you big A&M fans or?
Yeah, no, we graduated. I graduated in 2010. My wife graduated in 2012. So for me, Missouri was there my entire college career. So I mean, I remember some of the games that we saw at Kyle Field. Chase Daniel, he was there, and he's like, he's still in the league, as a backup.
Yep. Made millions. By the way, just so you know, Mallory, because Mallory was born on January 2nd, 2008. If she would have been a boy, her name was going to be Chase.
Really?
Just so you know, that's how in we are.
Oh man.
My wife said no, but I said that's what it was going to be because I was going to sign the paper before she had a chance. But seriously, I was going to do that. But yeah, it was one of those things, I remember we played because we clinched to go to Atlanta the one year. It was against A&M at Faroe because we're season ticket holders. We have tickets on the hill. Like we don't even have seats. We just sit on the grass.
Yeah.
Like $15 a seat times how many games and you get
right.
But I just remember yelling, I hate you, Johnny Manziel, because he was so cocky. And I'm like, he's going to take this from us. And then we got that big run. I was like, oh my God, we're going to Atlanta again.
Yeah.
For somebody like you guys are A&M, right? I mean, we're Missouri. Like I just never, when we went to the SEC, I remember Dad said, terrible decision. You're never going to win. I said, you're right. We're never going to win the SEC, but every weekend is going to be like a bowl game compared to playing 12. And then when we went, I was like, I can die right now. Like,
yeah, man. That's all.
We went to Atlanta once, and then we went twice. I mean, got stomped, but
yeah. Yeah, no, it's Missouri. I remember them obviously, and I wanted to mention. So where I'm at, Paul Goldschmidt. I was friends with him in the 5th grade. We were like best friends.
Really?
Yeah, I meant to mention that to you sooner, but yeah, obviously I saw he won the NL MVP, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I love the guy because he is such a throwback ball player. He just does everything right and doesn't say a word. In the era, because you said you're a ball player, so I was a pitcher all through high, and my dad caught a major league Cy Young actually when I was a kid, and so I grew up around a lot of major league ball players and in clubhouses and stuff. But like Goldschmidt, he's a throwback. Like I can't. I'm just one of those people. I can't stand bat flips.
Right.
I can't stand any of that. I think the showing up pitchers going around the bases and the Manny Machados.
Yeah.
They say the game's got to get more exciting, but I just think it just makes me sick.
Yeah, no, he was there. The team that he was on in the Woodlands, they won this. I played like for the school, like across the freeway. And that year that they won the state championship here in Texas, that team was loaded. It had Doug Drabeck's son on it and Paul Goldschmidt. Yeah, they had a good team.
I just love the guy because he's fundamentally sound and he's just a good guy. He's appreciative. It feels like he doesn't say anything, but thank you. And I'm just going to do my job.
Yeah. He's a guy of few words, right? He's very
I love few
words.
Right? I love him and I love Adam Wainwright, they're just ball players.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't need all the, if we were going to get Juan Soto, I'm like, oh, please. And now we got Wilson Contreras. I'm like, oh my God. We got the Cubs catcher to replace Yachty. I'm like, Mallory's still mad about that. She's a big baseball fan. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
What are you going to do? Well, hey, Merry Christmas to you and the family. And thanks for taking the time because I know you're crazy busy. And we'll have this out on the day after come out Christmas night, actually.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Take care. Nice talking to you.
Hey, same. Bye. Take care, bud.